So sitting down to meditate, make our lives as simple as possible. Formal meditation simply means that we try to minimize the obstructions, external obstructions to awareness, and maximize the supporting conditions. So, trying to do the same thing in daily life. There should be a continuity, but we have very little power over our surroundings. So it's very difficult in daily life to reduce, minimize opposing factors and increase or maximize supporting factors. But in meditation, we can do that. We try to do that. So we sit in a place which is not too hot, not too cold, not too stuffy. Where there are no loud, disturbing noises, no calls upon our attention from elsewhere. It's just this body and this mind. That's what we call in Buddhism the real world. This is the nitty-gritty of human life, right here, right now. So we should be learning, observing. For example, the relationship between posture and awareness. So we've taken upon ourselves a task to be awake and aware with the real world of the body and mind. And our posture influences how well we can do that. Firstly, it's very clear that if we don't sit straight, if we're curled over, it's very easy to become sleepy. If we sit straight, it doesn't mean that we will never be sleepy, but it reduces the likelihood. On the other hand, if we put too much effort into sitting straight and become rigidly straight, then there's another problem. The breathing is not natural, becomes constricted. We feel rather tense. So we're getting this feedback moment by moment. Sit straight, yeah, that makes me more bright, more alert, but not too straight because that makes me tense. So is there any other tension in the body? We can just sweep through the body and check. And be aware, are there any areas in your body that you've noticed that stress tends to accumulate? Is it in the forehead, in the jaw, in the neck, in the shoulders? That's a common one. In the chest. And so tension, physical tension, is an obstruction to the practice. We can let go of physical tension by consciously tensing even more, and then release. So how we place our legs, how we place our hands, there's no right way or wrong way. The sitting posture is one that provides us with a triangular base for the body. So we want a stable base. That's the point. So how do we get a stable base? Usually if we have something just lifting up at the back, a cushion or something folded just to lift the posterior up and just gives that little tilt forward of the body that assists in providing the stability that we want and to maintain that natural straightness of the body. So if the knees are below the bottom, that's the best. If we cross the legs, then can cross them in full lotus. Feels kind of good to be able to do that, but it's by no means essential. There's always half lotus, or just to have one leg crossed in front of the other. It's called a Burmese posture. You can experiment, see what works, but there'll be no posture in which there is zero discomfort. So don't be looking for zero discomfort and constantly changing posture in order to find that unattainable ideal. The hands, again, you can put your hands on your knees or flatter with the palms down or the palms up. Can have the thumb and the index finger lightly touching, or the hands in the lap with the two thumbs lightly touching. The advantage of the fingers, the thumb and the index finger lightly touching, or the thumbs lightly touching, is that if mindfulness weakens, then the fingers tend to fall apart. So it's like a warning, it's another level of feedback, rather a coarse initial level of feedback that mindfulness has been lost. But again, having the thumbs or fingers lightly touching, it's an option. You can find what works for you. So you want that straightness, and with the head tucked slightly forward, but you can imagine as if there is something pulling the head towards the ceiling. Imagine a magnet in the ceiling, and your head's iron. Maybe that doesn't work so well, but just imagine your head being pulled upwards slightly, rather pleasantly. So given that you have some physical problems, one level or one kind of another, probably, you have to make peace with that. And this is how it is right now. This is your body right now. Getting older, not what it was, maybe, but that's okay. It's good enough. So being able to recognize, come to peace with all the imperfections of our body, the physical distractions, things that can be distraction. I was saying, it's all right, you're okay. Now at the beginning of a retreat, then there's a lot of memories, luggage from the past still knocking around in the mind. At the beginning of a meditation, then if we notice that we have some particular kind of sense of unfinished business, things that left home, still not quite happy about, uncertain about, then be clear with yourself during a meditation, this is not the time to be analyzing and pondering on those issues. We've taken the 8 precepts, we've left the world, left our family behind, left all of that stuff behind just for a while, not for so long. But having made the effort to come here, it would be a shame to bring all that with us. It'd be a waste of time. So just reminding yourself at the beginning of every meditation, what exactly we're doing here now. It's not a time to allow memories to capture the mind and to indulge in those memories and work stuff out. So then what is it that we are doing? We're sitting in an appropriate posture as best as our poor bodies will allow us, as straight and naturally straight as we can, as still as we can. And what exactly is the purpose? The purpose is, I would suggest, learning how to put forth right effort. And right effort, samma vayama in Pali, four kinds. The effort to guard against as yet unarisen defilements, learning how to abandon defilements that have already arisen in the mind, learning how to introduce into the mind wholesome, positive qualities that are not there yet, and learning how to take care of and bring to maturity those good qualities that are there already. So the Buddha, in his very first teaching, revealed the Four Noble Truths, which we can summarize even more succinctly as suffering arises through defilement, liberation through happiness arises through virtues or kusala dhammas. Now, if we accept that as our basic premise, then we can see why exactly we need to develop the skill of preventing defilements, which are the cause of suffering from arising in the first place, and learning how to abandon those that have arisen already. And as liberation through happiness arises from virtues, then you can see why we need to have some systematic approach to introducing into the mind wholesome qualities that are not there yet, and why we need to take care of those that have appeared already and to cultivate them further. So the meditation practice from the beginning is conducted within the framework of the four right efforts. Now, in order to have developed these skills, we give the mind a very simple task. The simpler the better. For example, as you breathe in, you know you breathe in, and you breathe out, and you know you breathe out. So we're taking a natural phenomenon, part of the body itself, something which is there already, and simply turning towards it, taking an interest in it, creating a relationship with it. So very simple, doesn't need any sophisticated philosophy or logical analysis. And giving the mind a job to do, and then see what happens. When we ask the mind to be present, to be aware of the breath, then we find it kind of difficult. Why should it be difficult? Why can you not just tell your mind to watch the breath for an hour or 2 hours, or indeed all day and all night? Why can you not do that? Well, the answer, of course, is human defilement. But in particular, what we call the 5 hindrances. So when we bring the mind to the breath, and the in-breath we know it's breathing in, out-breath we know it's breathing out, then we get bored. It's not stimulating, it's not interesting. And so the mind will jump off usually into memory or imagination. And a memory arises in the mind, and we make a story out of it, and we enjoy the memory, or a thought, some kind of imagination, imaginary fantasy. The mind enjoys that. So we learn something immediately. When the mind is given a task which it doesn't find sufficiently stimulating, it will run away and look for pleasure in the past and the future, in memory or imagination and thought. So this is the first challenge. How can we maintain awareness on an object which is not particularly interesting, or not interesting at all? How do we prevent the mind from running off, looking for some small pleasure, some small stimulation from memory or thought? So one of the ways we can deal with this initial problem is by looking at the big picture. You can say, yeah, moment by moment at the beginning, the meditation, trying to stay with the breath, it's difficult, it's boring. But if you stick at it, and you maintain, and you can create a stream of unbroken awareness, then you will experience joy and rapture and bliss and all kinds of marvelous mental phenomena which are completely inaccessible to someone who doesn't meditate. So it's a little bit of a reward being dangled in front of the mind. But more importantly than that is that as long as we follow these habits of defilement, we'll never know any true inner peace, contentment, will never develop any true wisdom and understanding. So initially, to prevent these as yet unarisen defilements from arising, we need to give some thought to creating a relationship with the breath, kind of outflank the uninteresting nature of the breath, which makes it difficult for us to stay with it. So one of the methods that teachers have recommended is to use a mantra. So just the in-breath, the most popular mantra is using the word Buddha or Buddho. Buddho is just a case in the Pali language. It's like the nominative form of Buddha. So when in the subject of a sentence ending with an A, you put an O on the end of it. So Buddha becomes Buddho, divide into two. But the point about Buddha and Buddho is that it is a word with a profound or extremely, the most profound meaning possible. And Buddho is the awakened one. It's awakening. It's the free, liberated mind. So as we breathe in, we think Bud, and we breathe out Ho, then every now and again we just remember the meaning of the word. Don't allow it to become a mere sound in the mind. It's a means of supporting awareness. It shouldn't detract from awareness and become mechanical. And then it becomes an obstacle rather than a support. So take some time, if you're going to use this mantra of Buddho, is there time to reflect on what Buddha means, what Buddha means to you. And so it doesn't mean that you're contemplating the various meanings of Buddha while you're focusing on the breath, but that should be digested and it should be there, right there in your mind, that this is not a meaningless sound. It's a sound with the ultimate, most profound meaning. as an alternative for Thai meditators, and I have suggested substituting the word Dun Ru. So on the in-breath, you Borikam, you use a Ru, and on the out-breath, Dun. Because the Buddha is Puru, Pudun, Bahn. So in the in-breath, Ru, out-breath, Dun. So that's a more immediate reminder of the meaning of the phrase. So the breath is changing all the time. This is the unique feature of it as a meditation object. It can be short, can be long. And we have to keep track of those changes. And if you're using Buddho as an object, then Buddho has to accommodate the variations in the length. So your out-breath maybe starts to become very long or very faint, and then you have to adapt your toti to be there with it, however it changes. So using a mantra, a two-syllable mantra, you can use another mantra if you want. You have a profound two-syllable word which would fulfill the same function. Another similar skillful means is to count breaths. Again, the idea is to create a stronger connection, stronger interest in the breath, a relationship between the mind and its object. So if you have the relatively untrained mind and the sensation of the breath as it manifests at the tip of the nose or the top lip, that's not sufficient to maintain a continuity of awareness. And you can use a word like Buddho or counting. And there are many different counting methods. And again, it's not that any are right or any are wrong, although most meditation teachers will suggest that counting beyond 10 becomes distracting. One method is to begin by counting 1 on the in-breath and 1 on the out-breath, then 2 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. And if you get distracted, you forget, then it's back to the beginning until you can get 5 consecutive mindful breaths. Now, if you can get to 5, then start again and count 1, 1, 2, 2, up to 6, 6. Again, if you can get all the way to 5, 5, and then 1, 1, 2 to 6, 6, and you're still there in the present moment, aware of the breath, then go on to 1 to 7. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, all the way to 7, 7. And then following this same pattern, carry on to 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. So it's quite a challenge. And if you get lost, you have to go back to the beginning. The rationale for changing the number in this systematic way is that it makes it much less likely that it will become mechanical, because you have to constantly have that sharpness to remember whether you are counting up to 5 or up to 6 or up to 7 and so on. And you tend to realize when you lose your mindfulness very quickly because you're aware you don't know where you are in the counting. So if you're using the sensation of the breath as your object or a meditation word, you can get lost for some time before realizing. But for beginners in particular, the counting is effective way to create a stream of mindfulness. Now, whether you are using the mantra to stabilize the mind, to create a bond between the mind and the breath, or you are counting, there will come a certain point in which it feels tiresome and heavy, unnecessary. And that's when you can simply focus on the sensation of the breath. And now as your mindfulness has developed, you find that the breath is actually a lot more satisfying an object than seemed possible when you began to meditate. The subtleties in the breath, the subtle variations in the breath, the coolness of the in-breath, the warmth of the out-breath, the variations in its length and its coarseness and subtlety. Now these things provide sufficient information, sufficient to enable the mind to stay with the breath. Now the point at which you focus on the breath is again up to you, and you can, if you've not yet found that particular spot which suits you, then you can try different spots. The tip of the nose is the one which is most popular, probably, and appears in the great commentaries in the Visuddhimagga, and the upper lip. But we can also be aware of the breath in the chest area or in the abdominal area. But find a spot where you just feel this is, I can work here, this is a place I can be. And if you develop the practice, apply yourself to it, then you'll find a familiarity with that place and becomes like a home. And coming back to the breath at the nostril or the lip or the chest area or the abdomen, so it feels like coming home, grounding yourself in the real world. If the mind becomes dull or lacking in energy, then can expand the awareness of the breath rather than restricting it to a single point in the body. Feel the breath throughout the body, from the top of the head to the feet, as if the body is an oxygen balloon which expands and contracts. Try to recognize, observe the energy associated with the breath, which can feel right throughout the body. So you can do a more systematic sweeping through the body from the head down to the feet according to the style, the technique of Ajahn Jayasaro, for instance, or just a more general awareness of the breath in the head and the neck and the shoulders and the arms and the hands and the torso and the bottom and the legs and the feet and the toes, and just feel that all together. And that can be, it's a very pleasant feeling, and one can be helped to take the mind out of dullness and sleepiness, which can often occur when you are focusing particularly on the end of the nose or the lips. Focusing in the head area can easily bring dullness to the mind. So just expanding the awareness, feeling it throughout the breath, imagining it, sensing it, not the coarse breath, but the prana, the whole energy of which the breath is the coarsest manifestation throughout the body. So there are many different approaches to this technique of using awareness of the breath as a means to learn right effort, as a means to protect the mind against defilement, as a means to allow us to abandon defilements that do arise, to deal effectively with the 5 hindrances, to bring the 7 bojjhangas, the enlightenment factors, into the mind and learn how to cultivate them.